Hi everyone and welcome to another Korean lesson from Korean Studio. My name is Kim Gi-hwan. Now today we're going to learn about the object marking particles or just object particles, and these are 을 and 를. So let's go straight into the lesson. Now the basic function of object particles is to mark a noun as the object of the verb, and that's pretty much the overall function of object particles. Let's take a look at two example sentences. 저는 점심을 먹었어요. I ate lunch. 저는 점심을 먹었어요. 저는 커피를 마셨어요. I drank coffee. 저는 커피를 마셨어요. In the first sentence, because 점심 is the object of the verb 먹었어요, ate, it's marked by the object particle 을. And in the second sentence, because 커피 is the object of the verb 마셨어요, drank, it's marked by the object particle 를. And we use the particle 을 if the noun it's used with ends in 받침. And because 점심 ends in 미음 받침, it's used with 을. However, if the noun doesn't end in 받침, then we use 를. And because 커피 doesn't end in 받침, it's used with 를. Now, in many situations, particularly in speech, object particles are dropped because the relationship between the noun and the verb is pretty obvious. And in these sentences, the nouns are clearly objects of the verb. So it's very common for people to just say 저는 점심 먹었어요 and 저는 커피 마셨어요. So that's the basic overview of the object particles. But let's now think about some unique aspects of these particles. First, in Korean, there are many verbs that are formed by combining a noun and 하다, such as 공부하다, which means to study, and 요리하다, which means to cook. And these two words are essentially treated as verbs, but we can also separate the noun and 하다, and when we do that, the noun is treated as the object of the verb 하다. So we would use the object particles, and this time 공부 and 요리 both don't end in 받침, so they are used with the particle 를. So we say 공부를 하다 and 요리를 하다. And these two structures, so whether we use it just as a verb, 공부하다 or 요리하다, or whether we separate them into a noun and a verb, 공부를 하다, 요리를 하다, they basically have the same meaning. And both are correct, and they're both very commonly used in Korean. So basically, there are two different ways of saying the same thing. Now, another important aspect to consider is the verb 있다. And this word 있다 has many different uses. And one of them is to talk about having something. So if I want to say I have money, I can say 저는 돈이 있어요. 저는 돈이 있어요. In this sentence, 돈 means money and 있어요 is the polite form of 있다, which means to have. Now, in English, the verb to have is a verb. So the noun money would be the object of the verb. However, in Korean, the word 있다 can be used as a verb in different situations, but it can also be used as an adjective. And when we use 있다 to talk about having something, it's used as an adjective. And Korean adjectives, which kind of function like a verb, cannot have an object. So they're used with either topic or subject particles rather than object particles. So in this sentence, 돈, money, is used with the subject particle 이. But we can also use it with a topic particle and say 저는 돈은 있어요. 저는 돈은 있어요. However, we cannot use 돈 with an object particle and say 저는 돈을 있어요. 저는 돈을 있어요. This sentence is grammatically incorrect. So remember that when we use the word 있다 to talk about having something, it's used as an adjective. And the noun it is used with cannot be used with object particles. Okay, so the final thing to note with object particles is when it's used with the verb 다니다. Now, the verb tanida has many different uses, and one of them is to talk about regularly attending or commuting somewhere, such as schools or even places like the gym. So to say, I go to a high school in Korean, we would say, 저는 고등학교에 다녀요. 저는 고등학교에 다녀요. And as you can see, we use the particle 에 with the noun 고등학교, high school. And the particle 에 can be used to refer to the destination of one's movement. However, we also use Tanida to talk about going somewhere for a specific purpose to do something. So we often use Tanida to talk about going traveling or going somewhere to exercise. So to say I go hiking every weekend, we can say 저는 주말마다 등산을 다녀요. 저는 주말마다 등산을 다녀요. And as you can see, we use the object particle 을 with the noun 등산, hiking. And when we use the verb 다니다 to talk about going somewhere for a specific purpose of doing something, we use the object particle with a noun the verb relates to. So depending on how you want to use the verb 다니다, the noun the action of the verb relates to may be used with different particles. But here's an important point. In natural speech, Koreans don't differentiate between the two uses that much. So if someone in Korea wanted to say that I go to a university, as in that person attends university, that person might say 저는 대학교에 다녀요. But that person might also say 저는 대학교를 다녀요. And although technically the first sentence is correct, you will often hear Koreans say both sentences. So do keep that in mind. Okay, so that's it for this lesson on object particles, and I hope you now have a much better understanding of how these particles are used. I look forward to seeing you soon again. Bye-bye.